Hello, welcome back to the 8th plot. This is another Minecraft video where I continue building something, in Minecraft, something from one of my books. And as you can see, we're continuing to build the Ark from Stolen Futures. So in the last episodes, I managed to finish the sides and a massive sort of lava pit that the Ark sits in, where, because it smashed into Iceland, and that obviously split some plate tectonics apart and lava bubbled up to surround the ship, kind of like a Dark Lord, a Dark Wizard sort of fortress, something like that. And that's what I finished in the last video. And so what I've been adding is essentially the part that separates both sections of the Ark. Because the Ark is kind of two pyramids. A nice squat pyramid, kind of like the Great Pyramid of Giza, only if that pyramid was about, 26 kilometers in diameter. And then the lower section is another pyramid, a very long tapered one, and that's because the Ark is kind of shaped like a kite, a 3D kite. So what I needed to do was build in the barrier between both sections, and this is the lower, the ceiling, that's a better word, of the lower section. It intrudes into the top section of the Ark, and you'll see that as my red avatar goes around building it. And I'm also going to add some bits to the engine, the power conduits that run through the centre of the ship, right to the engines at the base of the vessel, and also some more guiding, parts, like the skeletal structure of the Ark that I'll use to fill it in later. So as my avatar builds that, I obviously need to talk to you about something, and I was thinking, why not read to you another short story that I wrote to accompany the series. I've obviously got the 2 books. The third one will come out very soon, once I finish editing it, of course. And in the meantime, you can find short stories on my website, www.mdrury.co.uk. And these short stories, I'm now pitching them towards what life was like before the main story. So a bit of background here. When the individual Arkonauts were chosen, they had to live on Earth for several months, knowing that they were going to survive, before being teleported onto the Ark, and then continue their journey, which is where the main series starts. But the destroyer sucking up all the water, being told they're going to be the only survivor of their particular country, the water supplies going down, the chaos and sort of warfare that happened prior to the Ark leaving planet Earth and planet Earth being destroyed in the story, spoiler alert, creates all kinds of interesting scenarios for all my characters. So I'm writing some of them from their perspective. So last time I did this, we did Bae, who's the South Korean representative aboard the Ark, and it was all about her story when her parents took her on their boat out to what remained of the sea in order to get away from people, because her parents believed that the further away from people, the safer she was. So today I'm going to read you a bit about Cortez, who's the representative from France, and it's about his story and how he lived before the end of the Ark. Not the whole story, but basically an exciting incident that he got into. So while my avatar continues to build parts of the Ark, allow me to regale you with Cortez's short story. Now, this is written from Callum being the narrator, and he's listening to Cortez tell him the story. So, let's pick up on the Ark and Cortez's story. "I'm having trouble believing you," I said to Cortez, the French representative on the Ark. It was lunchtime, and we were in the cafeteria. After a short discussion about our duties on board the ship, I started to get into more personal conversations with him, and eventually I asked him what was his life like before he was transported onto the Ark. I'm the English representative, so I assumed that the French representative would have gone kind of the same things that I did, since we only lived one sea away, and we were connected by a tunnel, for crying out loud. It turned out I was wrong. And I was starting to think it's a bit far-fetched, and maybe he was making up parts of it. "Okay, start from the beginning," I said to him. "You were told that you were going to be a crew member of the Ark. What happened next?" Cortez took a swig of water, and once suitably refreshed, he started his story. "So I used to live in wine country, specifically the Champagne region of France. My dad worked for one of the local vineyards. When the destroyer arrived and started taking all the water, the local aristocrat who owned the vineyard started hoarding water and building wells. She got everyone who worked on the winemaking process involved, drawing in lots of different families on thousands of acres or so that she owned. And very soon, our small area of France had a sustainable water reservoir. So I was very lucky where I lived. My family had water to spare for much of the time that the destroyer was on Earth. Now this was hidden from everyone beyond the valley where our aristocrats' vineyards were. We didn't want anyone else getting wind of our water supply situation. We even turned the edges of the vineyards into like a sort of dust bowl on purpose to discourage people from entering. So what happened when Dr. Ghost showed up for you, I asked. He and a military convoy came for me, and that was a tense situation, as everyone believed that he was coming for our water. Old weapons which had been hidden in cellars and lofts since the days of World War II started to come out. The aristocrat, a little bit more switched on than even my own dad, and owned everything, let the convoy pass, concluding that if she didn't, the repercussions of fighting the government would be far worse, and a bunch of former farmers were not going to be a match for the convoy. Thank goodness she let him through, because Dr. Ghost came straight to my family and informed my parents and myself of what was going to happen to me, that I was going to be the sole remaining Frenchman to survive the end of the war, the destruction of Earth. They gave me the nanite injections that I needed, and he deemed me safe enough where I was, left me until, the teleport would happen. I expected to live out the rest of my life on Earth in that vineyard, before going on board the Ark. However, over time, refugees started trickling in, fleeing into Europe, as it still rained on the continent and other northern parts of the world. The people followed the water. Soon, our little sort of oasis was found out, and more refugees came in. The aristocrat was good enough to supply them as much as they could, but it started to fill up really quickly of people, really desperate people. So my parents believed it was unsafe for me, and so they contacted Dr. Ghost, and he arranged for me to come to the UK, which was safer. We couldn't fly though. The air was becoming clogged with particulates that the destroyer had put out, and that prevented air travel. The channel was drained by this point by the destroyer, so boats were out of the question. Instead, we were told to drive. Drive? What, across the channel? Was there even a route, I asked. Yes, there was. However, that wasn't the issue. The issue was the terrain. The seafloor wouldn't have been a dry seabed. It would have been a bog. The destroyer didn't get all the water. Plus, all the sea life that had been in the channel would have been left stranded and was probably rotting away. Goodness knows what health problems that could have caused, as well as travel problems. But Dr. Ghost persisted with us driving there, so one day a convoy of trucks came for me. They were specially adapted drone vehicles, no human drivers at all. My parents and a couple of other family members got on board, along with the military men who came with the convoy, all there for my protection, just my protection. The drive out of the vineyard was horrible, because some refugees tried to stop us from leaving. The drones, the sort of robotic core of each vehicle, just ploughed straight through them, without a warning or a care. Seriously? I said, imagining for a moment a convoy just running over those poor people. Someone had screwed up when they programmed those drones. Or maybe they had programmed them that way on purpose, Cortez said. I mean, if you know humanity is going to end, why wouldn't you program it to do anything to protect those you're responsible for? Still, that is messed up, I said. Agreed, Cortez said. That was pretty freaky. Took a while for me to get over. But anyway, the drone vehicles continued on, across France, all the way to Calais, where they planned to cross the no longer wet channel. This was where the story gets crazy. So we drove to the beach, down a steady decline to the lowest point of the channel, and the cars had been fitted with excellent tyres, state-of-the-art sensors. The drones were finding the best route through to Dover, where we would rejoin with Great Britain. The stench was horrible. So much rotting fish, hordes of flies. At one point there was this sort of field of jellyfish that had become stranded. And then we came across another group of cars right in the middle of the channel. They were gathered in a sort of rough circle. When we got closer, I spotted a digger. A digger? You mean with the giant arms and caterpillar tracks, I asked. Yes. Why did they have that? They were digging, of course, Callum. When we neared, we saw the piles of sand they had managed to sort of excavate. So what happened? They shot at us, Cortez exclaimed. They shot at you? The trucks were armoured, so we were completely safe. The bullet strikes kind of sounded like rain, actually. However, the tyres could only take so much. The rubber was shredded, and our trucks went straight into the mulch of the seafloor. He made a skidding noise and a sort of explosion with his hands. So our vehicles were grounded, and the men and women who were there digging surrounded our trucks. We were outnumbered, and so even our military people decided it was a good idea to surrender. Wow, I said, totally enthralled with this part of the story. We were dragged away from our vehicles and brought together next to the pit they had excavated. And that's when I saw what was inside, what they had been attempting to dig out. So what had they uncovered, I asked. A galleon, he said. He let the word hang in the air. What, you mean like an old pirate ship? No, a proper Spanish galleon, buried in the silt and sand since the time of the Spanish Armada. What? I know, right? The men were digging it up, and they had purposely driven all this way to find it. They knew where it was based on, some old maps or history or whatever. But they could never have gone through it before, but now the sea had gone, it was possible. But why? The world was ending. Money was no use, I said. They didn't know that, did they? Cortez responded. Don't forget, everyone but us thought that the Ark was still going to come crashing down on the destroyer and free all our water. These men still thought that the war was going to continue, so they were looking for a way to make money from the crisis. It turned out that this galleon had been part of the Spanish Armada and was a special ship, as it was carrying gold to pay for the invasion of England. It was one of many sunk during a storm and the fire ships that set the entire Armada adrift back in the, 15th century? 16th? These people didn't believe that we were just on our way to England. We had no interest whatsoever in their gold, but they thought we were here to steal their prize. They set us down in a group, kept a gun on us at all times. How did you get out of there? I asked. It was all thanks to one of the soldiers who was with us. A very brave man. As the treasure hunters kept digging, unearthing more of the ship, they uncovered the gunpowder store. Uh-oh, I said. Yeah, right, exactly. They treated it very carefully. I guess they weren't too sure if it could go up. I guess it must have dried out a little bit, considering that there was no more water in the channel. But one of the men who was guarding us, at some point turned his back, excited by the uncovering of the treasure, and just interested in all the treasure chests that were coming out. And that was when one of my guards pulled out his lighter. He motioned for us to get down behind one of the sort of piles of sand, acted as a nice barrier, and then he leapt forward. But before he could be shot at, he threw his lighter into the pit where all the digging was going on, right into the middle of the Spanish galleon. Cortez put his hands together, then brought them out, splaying his fingers opening and saying, "Kaboom!" Everyone in the pit disappeared, the ship, everything. The guard who was looking after us was blown backwards, his bottle riddled with gold, alongside the soldier who had defended me. All these gold coins continued to rain down on us afterwards for a little bit. It was a tremendous explosion. Well, I guess you all survived, I asked. We did. We were just far enough away, and that pile of sand acted like a shield and kept the worst of the explosion from us. So how did you make it to England, I asked. One of the treasure hunters' cars was not completely destroyed by the blast. Me and my family got inside and drove the rest of the way. We had to leave our guards behind. I assume they tried to walk the rest of the way, but who knows if they made it or not. Cortez, that was a great story, but it sounds like a lot of it was made up. Do you have any proof of this actually happening? Cortez smiled. He put his hand on his collar and pulled it down, revealing a necklace, really just a thin strand of string, but at the end of it was a metal frame. He pulled it out, and set inside was a Spanish coin, minted with the face of Philip II of Spain. I picked one up as we departed, he said. I thought it would make a nice souvenir. I looked around the cafeteria, and spied Alba sitting a couple of tables away. Make sure you don't tell that story around Alba. She's the Spanish representative. Technically, that coin belongs to her. We both looked over to her, and she didn't even know that. She hadn't even heard that we had been talking about her. She was calmly eating her dinner. Cortez looked back at me. Finders keepers, Cortez said. But he still hastily stuffed the coin back down his shirt and covered it up. I laughed at him. He flicked some food at me, and that started a food fight across the whole cafeteria. There we go. A little bit of Cortez's story about how he survived after learning the destroyer was going to destroy Earth, and how he coped after being told he was the only Frenchman to survive. I can see that my avatar's now ending the construction of the Ark. As you can see, I'm not filling it all in yet. I've only done one half, and that's just because I want people to be able to look in and see the superstructure, kind of like those books that do the Death Star or the Quinjet or like Minas Tirith, like, you know, the being able to look inside great structures and vehicles or whatnot. So I kind of want someone to see into it. It's not precise, I have to admit, because Minecraft doesn't really allow for that. But I do love that Minecraft allows me to create these things. So there we go. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you enjoyed Cortez's story. You can find it on my website, as I said before, and lots of others, and I'll be narrating some over Minecraft videos in the future. Don't forget to check out other videos on the 8th plots, some funny videos in honest movie news, and some new videos, what if videos that encourages new storytelling and new stories based around what I say in honest movie news. So there we go. Have a good morning, afternoon, and evening wherever you are in the world. Goodbye.